It is said you cannot command the wind, but you can adjust the sails, or alternatively you can change your destination. I set out with the intention of rounding Land's End and sailing up the north coast of Cornwall, with Lundy as my ultimate destination. However, the winds didn't play ball on this occasion, with a constant stream of northeasterly winds which, running against the current that I would have been using, would have meant wind over tide and an uncomfortable ride. This was the early part of May, and I was setting off after a fairly wet period in May, if you remember. But after a short while, and certainly after Start Point, the skies cleared and the weather was set fair, as we remember, well into June. After a quick stop in Salcombe, I made for Falmouth. The trip to Falmouth started with a force 3 to 4 beam reach almost as far as the Eddystone. And at some stage I had some company. And then slowly it calmed down to an almost flat, calm sea for the remainder of the journey. And so the motor went on, and the boat having a clean bottom, being early in the season and with smooth seas, we were motoring at 5.7 knots through the water, and that and more over the ground. Falmouth has long been one of my favourite destinations. I stopped at St Just for a lunch break, paid a visit to Trelisic House from landside, but which gave a view over one of my favourite anchorages in Channels Creek. We also took a trip upriver past the King Harry Ferry onto Ruin Pontoon next to Ruin Creek. The latter is navigable near high water or by dinghy, which we have done in the past. We also visited Glendurgan Gardens and the Helford River by car. I will probably return here on my next trip southwest to Scilly. After passing a pleasant week in Falmouth, I then sailed north, out past St Mawes and St Anthony Head, and I had the most enjoyable sail past the Dodman Headland, often reaching hull speed on a close reach, on slight seas and with clear blue skies. In Fowey Harbour, the pontoons and the moorings were quiet, as it was still mid-May. So I had a choice of pontoons or moorings, and in fact there's no difference in price, so you make your choice. A good-sized training yacht had just completed a round Britain passage, so it was being escorted into Fowey to quite a fanfare before discharging the young trainees. I took the dinghy ashore to Polruan Quay and followed the coast path, which gives a delightful perspective over the harbour entrance. Leaving Fowey, I ghosted along in very light winds. Past Polperro and Loo Island, but didn't stop on this occasion in what were northeasterly winds, although fairly light. I also went past Cawsand Bay, which is often a favourite anchorage. Instead, I spent a couple of pleasant nights in the River Yealm, walking the northern shore from Warren Point and also the southern shore out past Sellers Beach. It was a sunny, warm weekend, and the Yealm, as probably everywhere, was very busy, but there was still space to accommodate me. Moving further east, I stopped again at Salcombe, and this time picked up a mooring buoy near the town, and there were quite a few mooring buoys still available. This allowed a walk into town and also a walk along the coast path to the National Coast Watch Institute lookout at Prawle Point. The latter involved a 9-mile round trip, but it included a landside view of Ellender Cove, where I have in the past taken a short break at anchor while waiting for the tide to turn around Prawle Point and Start Point. My final stopover was at Dartmouth. On this occasion I motored past the usual Ditcham moorings where I have often picked up a mooring buoy in the past. I picked up a Dart Harbour visitors mooring, one of just two at Stoke Gabriel. This allowed me to make a second visit to the mill pond, the church with its ancient yew tree, and of course the church inn. So overall, this was not a voyage as originally planned, but a delightful excursion in the glorious early summer that we have had this year, dominated by the high pressure system, albeit with the rather persistent easterlies that we've also had. This is now mid-June, however, and there is some change in the forecast for the weeks ahead. My next objective will be to head southwest again and hopefully spend some time on Scilly.